Okay, prosecutor, we are live to YouTube, and we are recording the stream. The floor is yours, sir.
Hello, everyone. So we're starting at 5:01. I was so hopeful we were going to start right at 5, but 5:01 is pretty good for us. So my name is Bradley Billheimer. I'm the Ocean County prosecutor. I want to welcome all of you. I want to thank you all for being here. Those of you that are on our panel, I want to thank you for the time you've put in to prepare for this. And those of you that are joining us, I want to thank you really for taking the time to have this discussion with us. Tonight's discussion is gonna focus on hate, bias, and prejudice, part of the larger issues that we've been working on here in Ocean County and that we've been working on really statewide. I'm going to start off by just giving you some statistics so that you can kind of wrap your head around where we are right now in the state of New Jersey. So 2017 to 2018, the bias incident report showed that 53% of bias offenders were kids or young adults. That's an extremely high number, right? And the other interesting part of that is that 45% of kids and young adults also made up the victims of bias incidents. So 25% of all those incidents occurred in schools from kindergarten to 12th grade. So the Office of the Attorney General, specifically the Division of Civil Rights, started what we call a New Jersey Interagency Task Force to combat youth bias. And they comprised a bunch of listening sessions conducted throughout the state. We had one here in Ocean County that I was proud to attend. I was there. Jasmine was there. I believe her brother was there as well. And Rachel Weiner-Apter, who's the director of the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights, came to Ocean County, and she listened to what's going on in Ocean County, and they didn't really ask any questions. They just listened. And what came out of that is this report, a comprehensive report. It's called an Anti-Bias Vision for the Next Generation. It's a 103-page report with 27 solid, concrete recommendations about how we can address bias incidents, hate, prejudice, all that kind of stuff here in New Jersey. I just want to give you a couple more statistics. In 2015, statewide, we had 367 bias incidents. In 2019, 4 years later, we had 998. That's a 170% increase. From 2019 to 2020, we had 1,433 bias incidents in 2020. 106 of those incidents were here in Ocean County, and that represents a 43% increase. So when you see these incidents skyrocketing, I have to just give a lot of credit to the governor and the Office of the Attorney General for having the foresight to really take a strong stand and put together a task force to listen and to try to make some recommendations. And what the report came up with is it really looked at the root causes of youth bias, the institutional bias, systematic bias, and systematic racism, all of those things that we're going to talk about tonight. Came out with some very serious recommendations, which we're going to discuss throughout the evening. So I appreciate you all being a part of this important discussion. I think that for me personally, we've been working on it here in Ocean County for a long time, and I feel like the best way to combat bias and discrimination and the hate groups is through education and information and building interpersonal relationships, right? Getting to know one another, and then we realize that we're really not that different, right? As I travel all throughout Ocean County and I meet with people, and I found this when I first became the prosecutor, and I've said this at many different talks, we all kind of want the same thing. We want to be safe in our community. We want our families to feel safe, and we want to be accepted. And I don't think it's that hard, but we need to keep moving this ball forward. And I think tonight's discussion is going to be a huge step forward in that. So I really do appreciate you all taking the time to be on here. So I'd like to just have everybody kind of introduce themselves, I think we can just go through, just so you say hello, who you are, what organization you're with, and if I just go across the way my grid is set up, Alejandra, you would be the first person if you could just unmute yourself and say hello and introduce yourself.
Okay, well, hello everybody. My name's Alejandra Castillo. I am a 2020 Lakewood graduate, and I was very involved, and still am very involved with the Junior Community Ambassadors Club, alongside Matteo and Jasmine, as well as president of Zoe's Life Group, which is a group organized by girls to kind of advocate for girls, empower them, and kind of career readiness.
Fantastic, thank you. Lina DeSouza, you're next there. I'm sorry I butchered your last name.
Oh, that was perfect. It's DeSouza. Yeah. So my name is Lina DeSouza. I attend Jackson Memorial High School. I'm a senior this year. Among being active within the schools, I am also part of an organization called Rays of Hope, in which I'm president of. And Rays of Hope is a community service organization focused on serving our community as well as raising our leaders to be very proficient in public speaking and advocacy as well.
That's fantastic. Next on my grid is Alyssa Mandera from the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. Hi, Alyssa.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Alyssa Mandera, Assistant Prosecutor in the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. I am the bias crimes prosecutor for the office as well as a trial prosecutor, and I handle and see all of the bias incidents that come in daily.
Thanks, Alyssa. Anthony Piero, you would be up next.
All right, thank you, Prosecutor. My name is Anthony Piero. I am the Chief Juvenile Attorney at the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office. I've been with the office now for a little over 21 years, and most of that has been handling juvenile matters. And quite honestly, over the course of that career, we've seen a lot of things, and the prosecutor nailed it with the increase in these types of incidents. And I have to say, just the two of you, other than Alyssa as well, but the two of you that have already introduced yourself, way more impressive than I ever was in high school. The two, you're killing it. And I think I'm going to say that about all of you. So it's just really exciting to be part of this. I appreciate being a part of this, and I look forward to our discussion.
I have to say, I feel the same way. So, Shbad, hello.
Hi, my name is Shbad. So I was actually a branch leader for a Jewish girls youth group for the last 7 years. It's called BUILD, which stands for Building Understanding Initiative Leadership Development. It's basically a leadership and diversity youth group that mainly focuses on teamwork, self-identity, and tolerance.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you. If you haven't noticed, you guys are probably all smarter than me, but we're going in alphabetical order based on what your name is on the screen. So Chief Investigator Dave D'Amico is up next. So thanks, Dave.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office for everything that you've done and your incredible team of law enforcement professionals. Thank you personally. I am honored and humbled to be a part of such an amazing team of heroes, leaders, and role models tonight who are going to discuss the impacts of bias, what we can do about it, what we can do if we're a victim, and what also we can do if we are confronted by bias. I am the Chief Investigator for the Middlesex County Department of Corrections and Youth Services. I am also the president of the New Jersey Bias Crime Officers Association, and I'm the first openly gay chief investigator in the entire state of New Jersey. And it's an honor to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. Every time you talk, I wish I had your voice. He's got the best voice. Christopher, thanks for joining us. You want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Christopher Nunez, and I am a junior at Point Pleasant Borough High School, and I'm an ambassador of the Diversity Council.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. Heather, hello.
Hi there. My name is Heather Roselle. I'm a graduating senior also at Point Pleasant Borough High School. I'm also ambassador for the Diversity Council, and basically we aim to increase educational opportunities for students of Point Pleasant in regard to various systemic issues that we otherwise might not have been exposed to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Jasmine and Matteo, I don't know who's going to go first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Gorin. I am currently a freshman at college, and I graduated last year from Toms River High School South. I am the co-founder of Community Ambassadors Club, and we really aim to bridge the gap between youth and their community by offering volunteer and leadership opportunities for high school, college, and middle school students.
Hello, my name is Matteo. I'm a sophomore at High School South. I'm the co-founder and president right now of Community Ambassadors Club at the high school as well. And in our club, we focus on immigration, healthcare, and homelessness in our community, as well as hate and bias in our community, as well as our schools. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you. Jayla, you're up next.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jayla. I am a freshman at Manalapan High School. I am the vice president of Rays of Hope, which Alina had mentioned before. We focus on, community service and leadership and public speaking for youth. So thank you for having me.
That's great. Thanks for being a part of it. Kameria, I know I probably said it wrong again, but I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm not gonna punish you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kameria Vaughn. I'm from Lakewood, New Jersey. I am a second semester in my master's program at Mom's University studying social work. I'm also the founder and CEO of Where All the Light Travels, which is my nonprofit organization empowering underprivileged youth and families, supplying resources and doing community service. And I'm also a member of the NAACP chapter of Ocean County.
Thank you. Hello, Nickerson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nickerson G. Lewis. I'm a graduate of Thomas River South in 2020. And I wasn't in any organization specifically, but I used the platform that I had in high school to let people know about the whole Black Lives Matter movement. I went to a lot of protests. I went to Asbury, the one in Thomas River, and I just used my voice to let people know what the issues that are going on in Thomas River specifically, because that's where I'm from. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Nickerson. I remember meeting you. You're a strong leader from Toms River South, my alma mater, by the way.
Yeah,
so
always an Indian.
Thank you. Nicole, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Prosecutor. My name's Nicole Hankins. I am the Student Assistance Coordinator at Point Borough High School. I'm also here to support my students from the Diversity Council. So thank you so much for bringing in the today.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. The fact that you have a diversity council, I think, is outstanding. Thank you. Raelyn?
Hi, I'm Raelyn Geiger. I graduated from Toms River High School East in 2019. The only thing that I really did there that I was active was the DART Youth Prevention Coalition with Dawn Alisi. I now go to OCC, where I proudly have myself as out as transgender non-binary. I try to attend his prides after having been coming out fully.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being here. Toms River East Raider.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you. I think David went away somewhere, but Rosalind, you're up next, Rose. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Rosalind Rojas. Everyone calls me Rose. I am a senior at Lakewood High School. I'm the president of the student ambassador organization that we have there. I like to identify as kind of like a community activist. I dabble in a little bit of everything. Just last week, I was on an Instagram Live with Rachel Weiner from the Division of Civil Rights here in New Jersey, where we talked about racism, discrimination, and bias in schools. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, and thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Rose. I watched on Instagram Live. You did a great job. Sunny, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny Ball. I'm also an ambassador for the Diversity Council at Point Pleasant Borough High School, which Heather very eloquently summed up. It's a newly developed program this year, so we're very excited about it. And thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. I have to say at the outset, you're also well-spoken. I mean, in high school and the early years of college, you're way ahead of where I was. I think I can speak for Mr. Piero as well. I think we agree. Hey, Paul, I noticed that Keith Schaffler is not on my screen. Is he still here? I don't see him. But I want Keith to introduce himself if he's available.
It looks like Keith disconnected.
Okay. All right, Mr. Caldwell, you're back there. Did you want to say anything before we?
Thank you, Prosecutor, and thank all of you guys for doing what you do. It's so admirable and very impressive. So I work for Prosecutor Billheimer now, in all the areas that he had just spoken about. And I'm so very proud to do so. I'm a retired police lieutenant from Point Pleasant. I spent 28 years of my life there. And during those years, I saw a lot of the things that you guys are fighting against. And in my career there, I fought against them too. And at a young age, you're so far ahead and so far advanced. And I know the prosecutor said it, and we're so very proud to have you as Ocean County students doing that. And I'm very proud to work for our prosecutor. Over the years, I've seen many prosecutors, and this prosecutor came to me. And over the years here at the prosecutor's office, Anthony and I have been to many schools together, doing many assemblies, and it's been our absolute pleasure. But this prosecutor came to me and he said, Mike, we're not going to do a traditional presentation. What we're going to do is we're going to go and let them present to us, because I want to hear their concerns. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear what's relevant to them. And then you and I and our staff are going to come back here and we're going to develop programs that we can use and will be very relevant to them and that will make a difference. So thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I'm proud to work for you in this regard. And I'm very proud of all of the students that are with us tonight and all of our colleagues as well.
Thanks, Mike. I see Keith is back. I don't know if I don't see his face, but I see his name. So Keith, I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know. It says that I'm. Oh, never mind. Now it. Okay. Sorry.
There you
Hi.
are. There you go. Thanks.
Do you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, we kind of skipped over you alphabetically. You disappeared in the case. It's okay.
I don't know what happened, but
Okay.
Hi, my name is Keith. I am a junior at Rutgers University, Camden, and I am a LGBTQ advocate, and I am an openly gay man. So, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Keith. I met Keith. He didn't mention it, but he's been working doing a food distribution here in Ocean County and Toms River every Friday for how many weeks now, Keith? 40.
Like 48, I think.
So 48
Yes.
weeks, Keith has been out there every Friday helping fulfill and people in Toms River distribute food. And that's where I met Keith when I was doing it in September and October. And I haven't been back recently, so I apologize, but I'll be coming back. But Keith and his family are out there every Friday, and that's how I met Keith. So I appreciate you being a part of this, Keith. So I just want to say a couple more things, and then we're going to open it up, and we're gonna play a couple videos. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is we're really going to kind of focus on hate and where it comes from. And I always felt like hate is a product of fear and ignorance. And I think there's a number of different ways, and the report actually that we're kind of circling this conversation around came up with 3 kinds of ways to really combat hate. And one of them, I think, is legislation, and that may not be the best way, but we do need laws as guardrails for conduct. But number 2, I think, is education and information. I think we have to really have discussions like this so we can change hearts and minds. I think that's really the key to really moving this whole thing forward. And the third part of that is the interaction and the relational experiences, so we can have a kind of a more civilized society. I think we're also polarized right now, that we have to kind of marginalize those people on the fringes to try to get them back towards some commonality. Because like I said earlier, I think the more we get to know one another, we're not that different. We're not polar opposites. We all want the same things, and who you love, what church you worship in, and I don't think any of that really matters. I think it's really something that discussions like these are going to help us. So we're going to play a video from Governor Murphy right now for you, and then we'll have a little discussion after that. Thank you. So everybody is slowly, once we play a video, everybody has to start up their cameras again. So Paul gave us very explicit instructions. So thank you. So that was Governor Murphy, and I hope you all got the message. We also have another video we wanted to play for you, and I think we should go right into Jasmine's video. And then Jasmine, if you want to say anything after that, we'll open it up to you, and then we'll move forward. So Paul, go ahead and play Jasmine's video, if you don't mind. So is everybody able to see the video? You guys could see it? Okay. Some people here in my office weren't able to see it. So Jasmine, the star of the video, why don't you tell us a little bit about, I got to work with Jasmine and her family on community ambassadors, and so they're just a great family, and I'd appreciate it if she'd say a few words, even though I think I lost her on my screen somewhere. Jasmine,
Yes.
are you still here? There you are.
I'm
Okay.
still here.
Can't see you, but okay.
It has been a while since we filmed that video, but just rewatching it and reliving the emotions and just reliving that moment. A lot happened last year, and especially during when that video was made in February, and we had prosecutor Bill Heimer come to our high school. We really got to open up and talk about what racism and discrimination looks like within our schools. And what I showed in that video was really how I felt. I felt like I wasn't worthy, I wasn't valuable, that my voice and my opinions didn't matter. And I felt it was because of my ethnicity, being Latina, and being part of the minority in my school. It was hard, and it's still hard in college. And I'm just here, and Matteo and I are here to be a voice for those who feel silenced, and just to be a platform for students to know that they're not alone.
It's amazing. Thank you. I mean, it's brought a tear to my eye, actually. I know what you and your family have been through, and you work so hard, and we just appreciate the struggle. I really do. I just appreciate you always putting your best foot forward, and we did have a good discussion. As Jasmine said, she was a student at Toms River High School South, and as Mike Caldwell alluded to, I started a rather ambitious project of going around to the area high schools pre-COVID, and I think I made it to almost 6 or 7. I think we had 18 to hit. Toms River South was one of the best discussions we had. If you remember, Jasmine, it started, and it was just a free-flowing discussion, kind of like we're going to have in a few minutes, about what it's like in school and how people feel, and do you feel safe, and do you feel representative of the faculty? Are you being taught by people that look like you? And we went through one period, then we went into a second period, and then the principal was in there writing passes for kids to go late to the third period. And it was one of the best discussions we had when we had student leaders looking at each other, and that's what I'm talking about. And it was the best example of when we talked about breaking down those silos that we're all in. It was creating interpersonal relationships. It was having kids in school that may not have spoken to each other all of a sudden start connecting with one another. And that's how you kind of break down these stereotypes, and you move past the bias and you move past the discrimination. So I want to thank you for all the work you and your family have done, Jasmine. It's amazing. So we're going to hear now from Nicole Hanks, the SAC at Point Borough. Nicole's going to give us kind of a view of what it's like on the inside, and I'm so proud that you have a diversity council, so hopefully you can tell us a little bit more about that as well.
Of course.
Thank you.
So as one of the advisors of the Diversity Council, I'm so happy and proud to be here with 3 of our students. There are 2 other advisors, Ms. Cooper and Ms. Tenery. So yay, Borough. So we put this group together, let's say, I want to say late spring, early summer of 2020. Actually, a past grad had come to me, or actually Zoomed with me during COVID, and expressed some of his concerns and emotions and what it was like to grow up in the borough. And he's an African-American student, and he's like, I want to be heard. You know, let's come up with some ideas. And that's really where the Diversity Council was born. And from there, you know, we got approval to start the council. And once it started full swing by October of this school year, we have about 50 students that joined our Google Classroom, and roughly 20 to 30 show up every month for the meeting. And like we mentioned before, it's a startup club. So, you know, we're open to new ideas, and, you know, we come in with lessons and activities. And then from there, we branched off and we have the ambassadors. So the students can have dual roles as the Diversity Council member as well as an ambassador. And after a few more trainings, our ambassadors are going to take off, and their job is to link people who, you know, are maybe being bullied or made fun of or anything like that, and they just don't know what to do. So they're going to link their peers to whether it be an anti-bullying specialist, which is myself, a counselor, administrator, and just help them through the process and identify really what's going on. And the main thing that our ambassadors are going to tell our peers is, you know, we're here to support, we're here to listen, and we want to make sure you're not alone.
I think it's fantastic I think it's fantastic to have a group like that organized with leadership within the school. I wish we had that in more schools. And one of the things I just thought of is that when we talk about bias incidents, we have to remember the people behind the incidents, right? Like, I talk to my staff all the time when we talk about statistics, that these are real people, and these are incidents that affect their lives. They're not just numbers on a page, right? So the greater harm to society that we talk about when we talk about bias incidents, we talk about the discrimination, the exclusion, the intimidation that comes along with all that we've all felt at some point, the dehumanizing of another person, all of that, those systematic kind of biases are referenced in this report. And that's why I think it's important to have these discussions. So I really appreciate your work there in Point Borough, Nicole. It's really great. I know if your students are on here, I don't know if I'm supposed to call you Miss Hankins or if I'm not supposed to call you Nicole, but I'm sorry. So we're going to hear now from Anthony Piero, and Anthony was contrite in his introduction of himself, but Anthony is and has been an expert in the area of juvenile justice for over 20 years. He speaks all around the country, and he's such an asset to this office. He and I have gone out and spoke at many schools pre-COVID, obviously, and talked about bullying, cyberbullying, and we've talked about so many different things. And I hate going after him because he always sounds better than me because he's got such a depth of knowledge. But thank you for being a part of this, Anthony.
Thank you, prosecutor. I appreciate the invitation. I'm just so impressed by the group that you've put together. It's amazing. And I'm going to throw out some dates that are going to sound very unfamiliar to a lot of you. But when I started in this office, it was 1999, and one of the first juvenile cases that I handled was it was a bias related case, but it was written in a bathroom on the door. And I think about, because I did want to talk a little bit about social media and the impact I think that's had on a lot of the things that we're dealing with and facing now. And I think about the way that these cases were handled in 1999 and the way that we're handling these cases in 2021. And it takes this group. It takes each and every one of you. And I'm just again, it's my pleasure to be here to be talking about this with you all. This is incredibly important to me. It always has been. It's always something that when I talk to law enforcement, I talk about, as the prosecutor said, the impact that these crimes and offenses have on people and communities. And I think we've already talked about that. We haven't really even gotten into the meat of our discussion, and I think you could already feel the impact that this type of stuff has on our community. And quite honestly, I've wanted to be part of the solution always. And anything that we can do, we've tried to do. And I think one of the things that the prosecutor said, and I want to echo it, is the educational part of this. Because especially in the juvenile field, especially the cases that I've handled, you see an absolute lack of awareness, a lack of education, a lack of compassion, a lack of, quite honestly, just thought into what is happening. And the prosecutor said it, I've spoken all over the country. And I tell stories just from interactions that I've had. And I had a young man who was bullied from the time that he was in 4th grade, and he was different. And we ended up speaking to the person who was bullying him. And when I say bullied, he would sit at his desk and people would knock over a water bottle that he had. And when he bent over to pick up the water bottle, they would knock his books off of his desk. And when he picked that up, they put a note on his back saying, "Kick me, I'm different." And they obviously were targeting him for a variety of reasons. And I got to know him through some of these conversations I was having, obviously in court. And when we went to the school to talk about what was happening, I asked the group, do you see this person when he's crying himself to sleep at night? When he's home with his family trying to figure out, why is this happening to me? Why can I not go to school like everybody else does? Why do I have to be afraid from the second that I get on that bus until the second that I get off? And quite honestly, back then, a lot of this stuff was limited because we didn't have social media. Again, by way of admission, when I started in high school, we didn't have cell phones and things like that. And quite honestly, now you don't get away from it. I've had cases where people have received thousands of text messages and they've changed their phone numbers, and the person has found their phone, the new phone number, and again begun the texting. And it's the education, and it's the compassion, and it's the thinking, and it's the coming together as this group and talking about this that lets us learn from each other. I surround myself with people that I can learn from, that I can listen to, that are going to encourage me to think in a way and challenge the way that we're doing things to always improve and be better. And this is the group that does it. I never talk about it. The prosecutor said it. I'm involved in a number of state and national committees. I want to learn from you. Quite honestly, we just had listening sessions completely unrelated, and we were doing them around the world, actually, because I'm on a federal committee that's trying to improve juvenile justice systems around the world. And we did the same thing, and we had these listening sessions, and we listened to other countries and other territories discuss their juvenile justice systems. So I end with that because we're going to learn something tonight. We're going to talk. We're listening. We want to be part of your solution. We want to support your initiatives. And quite honestly, again, it's just my pleasure to be here. So I thank you, prosecutor, for the invitation.
Thank you, Anthony. Rose, did you have your hand up? Did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to follow up on what Mr. Piero here said. I really resonate with your message about what you said about juvenile justice, especially because I'm so passionate about that myself, especially working in the criminal justice system, and I'm passionate about advocacy and that type of social and racial justice. So one of the questions that I had for you was, what kind of exposure do you kind of have to like different communities or students? Do you do more legal work or community wise, or what kind of stuff do you do like that?
Rose, that's a great question. I'm involved in every single thing that I can be involved with, and I'll expand upon that because I don't want to exaggerate it, but I don't like talking about myself. So I'll start with that. I was appointed by the basically it's through the administrator of the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. I was appointed to the Federal Advisory Group on Juvenile Justice. What that group does is we advise the President and Congress about all issues pertaining to juvenile justice. So we meet quarterly. It had been obviously in Washington and other places around the country. And we discuss everything related to juvenile justice, disparities in our system, adolescent brain development, intervention approaches, diversions, ways to improve our system, the school to prison pipeline, which is in the report. We do everything. I was also appointed by the governor to our state advisory group. And as part of the state advisory group, we monitor a lot of programs throughout the state. And again, we're focused on every community, every issue, because part of our job is to, again, make our juvenile justice system as fair and just as it can be. And that means attacking every issue that it faces. And so I'm involved in that as well. Locally, I'm involved in our Youth Services Commission. I know that a number of you have attended that meeting. Again, locally, we try to be involved in solutions. One of the things in the report was a program that Ocean County ran for years, and it was an anti-bias program. And any juvenile that came before the court or that got involved in bias-related incidents was sent to that program. And the report, it was in Middlesex County, and I know, Dave, you were involved in it as well. It was in Monmouth County, and then we implemented it in Ocean County around 2005. And of the 83 young people that went through the program, there were 0 that recidivated in terms of a bias-related event. And those are the programs that we're looking at. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Again, I don't want to speak too long just about me personally, but I'm also involved in our state. It's the CJJSI, which is the Council on Juvenile Justice and System Improvement. And I'm involved in a number of their subcommittees. One of the things I want to highlight is our school justice partnership. So what we do is we look at schools and the justice system, and we try to figure out a way that we can intersect. And one of the things that the report mentioned was not having or having some type of progressive discipline or alternative discipline to just suspension and expulsion. We are funding a program with state money to try to do things like that so that we can actually just be more, again, fair and just. So Rose, I try to be involved in everything I can be because we're solution-based. You'll never hear me complain. We're going to fix the issues that we're faced with, and we're going to do that together. And I want to listen to you. Forget about what I just said. I want to learn from you because I think that's where I then take my knowledge base when I'm going around the country to address these issues.
Thank you so much. Like, I was really taken aback by the very specific work that you do and how similar it is to my future aspirations. I'm crazy passionate about, social justice and human rights advocacy, especially the school to prison pipeline. I feel very strongly about those issues. So I'm looking forward to hopefully exchanging some contact information with you and just learning from the work that you do. I think it's great.
Thank you.
See, Rose, we're already making those connections. So when I talked about depth of knowledge with Anthony, one thing he didn't mention, and he doesn't like to talk about himself, but Anthony also meets with the superintendents of all the school districts here in Ocean County once a month. So he is relaying information from the office directly to your superintendents that I hope filters back down through the schools, but I'm not always sure that it does, but I hope that it does, right? So Anthony, the biggest compliment I can give him is he never says no to anything, and he does everything that we ask him to do and beyond. Before I became the prosecutor, I was an adjunct professor at Ocean County College. I taught criminal law and procedure. I taught in the fall and in the spring, and Anthony would come and speak to my class every semester. He would stay after and take questions. And he would walk in just like he probably walked into this meeting tonight with no notes. He can just talk because he knows all these things. So he's such a fantastic asset to have here at the prosecutor's office. So thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
We're going to hear from Alyssa Mandela next. Alyssa is the assistant prosecutor here in Ocean County that handles the bias incidents. She's going to talk to you a little bit about what is a bias incident, what's a bias crime, just so we have some groundwork that we can move forward on. So thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, prosecutor. Hello, everybody. So essentially, the big difference between a bias incident and a bias crime is, to start out, all bias crimes could be classified as a bias incident, but not all bias incidents rise to the level of being a bias crime. So the statute that we would prosecute bias crimes under in New Jersey is NJSA 2C16-1. And in that statute, it lists all the different offenses that can qualify to be the subject of a bias crime. So essentially, something becomes a bias crime because you commit another offense that's targeted at somebody because of their membership in one of the protected classes in New Jersey, which are, there's many of them. It's race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, ethnicity. It's all encompassing, and it was actually just updated recently to include gender expression and identity, disability, and some other categories that weren't included in the original law. So it does encompass a broad array of subjects that could be the basis for a bias crime. So essentially, a bias crime would be an offense that's committed against somebody because of their membership in one of those protected classes. And the offenses are numerous that can qualify. And we're talking about things such as harassment or criminal mischief, which would be like vandalism or something like that. We have assaults. And they get more serious, up from harassment all the way up to what could be a homicide that's committed against somebody, a murder because of their membership in one of these protected classes. So we have to prove that the offense was committed and it was motivated by the victim's membership in one of those protected classes. That is what motivated the actor to commit the offense against that person. And that's kind of where we get to this distinction between bias incidents and bias crimes, because sometimes we don't really have that connection, or a very strong connection. We have something that happened, it's bias related, we're showing some kind of negative feelings towards a group of people or a person specifically, but we don't really have the underlying motivation. And one of the best examples that I can always give is, you have an argument that starts in a parking lot over a parking space, and two people get into it, and maybe one person is black and one person is white, and it starts because of this argument over the parking space, and then perhaps that argument escalates and racial language is used. That will classify as a bias incident because we have something that shows an animus or is targeting somebody because of their race. There is language used, it's very clearly racial in nature, but the motivation was this argument over the parking spot as opposed to the just the person being black. Okay, so that's kind of something. We also see a lot of vandalism and words written, especially in schools. That comes up a lot on desks, in the bathroom. I know Anthony mentioned that still happens even with social media. People are still writing stuff on bathroom walls, spray painted on playgrounds. Those are all kind of classified as bias incidents because we don't have a target. We have a targeted group because we have this vandalism, this expression, this word, this drawing, a swastika, a racial word that's used, but we don't have a specific victim and we don't know what motivated that really, other than that person drawing that. So that's always an incident. Those are reported still and counted as statistics. A more targeted example would be if somebody went to someone's house and drew a swastika on their door, and then maybe we could prosecute that as a bias crime. And as the bias incidents have to be reported by all the local police departments as they come in daily, they get reported to a uniform system. And every day myself and my lieutenant in our unit look at those, and occasionally we see things that look like they could use a little further investigation. Maybe that bias incident could be raised to the level of a bias crime because we have a victim, we have a suspect who's actually been identified, and we have facts that we see that look very specific, like maybe this was more of a targeted incident and not just an argument that escalated or a dispute between neighbors, which has happened a lot, that escalated. So that's kind of what we're doing. I hope that was clear. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I also should note that the statute is being amended this year, I believe. I don't think it's come out yet. Currently, cyber crimes are not included as a predicate offense for bias intimidation. So that makes it very difficult for us because a lot of this harassment itself is a predicate offense, but cyber harassment and things like that are not. So this year, the statute is being amended for cyber crimes to qualify as an underlying qualifying offense for a bias crime, which is, I think, great news for everyone prosecuting these cases.
Thanks, Alyssa. I would tend to agree. I think that's going to be a good change in the law for us, and especially prosecuting these cases, because we get a lot of stuff written on the internet and on different social media platforms that we can't necessarily prosecute, as distasteful as they may be. We review them and realize that it's, that sometimes it falls under somebody's First Amendment right to free speech, but it doesn't necessarily rise to the level of a criminal offense, even though it's distasteful. So I appreciate you educating us all a little bit on what constitutes a bias incident and a bias crime, because that's one of the common questions that we always get. So, Mike, did you want to say anything, Mike Caldwell, before we get to Mr. D'Amico?
Very quickly, prosecutor, thank you again. And as I said earlier, my whole life, pretty much since I turned 18, has been spent in law enforcement. And, I've seen a lot of the things, unfortunately, that you guys are battling. And, as the prosecutor highlighted early, and Anthony as well, they're not pretty and they're not welcome, and we don't want them around anymore. And the key, prosecutor has said it, and I believe it, is having you guys, the youth, involved in taking this to the next level and then passing it down to the generation behind you. And it will require a lot of patience and a lot of hard work. I know that you're all willing to do that work. I certainly am proud to do it alongside of you. And, I started out in my career in Point Borough. I'm a Point Borough graduate and proud of that. And as a police officer, I taught the DARE program. If any of you guys had DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education, and I loved it. It was a thing that I loved to do every week. And some other officers also, taught the program. And when it came to be lunchtime, some of the other officers would say, I'm going to have my hour at lunch. And I spent that hour on the playground with the kids. I learned the rules of Nerf football. I tried to be a good basketball player. That never happened for me. I even jumped rope sometimes, and I left with some bumps and bruises and a little winded, but I developed a very good rapport, and I became the community officer. And it was something I loved and something I was very proud of and will always hold dear to my heart. When I look at you guys, I think of the world and how it can be better and how I want my own children to have a better world. And it does, it means so much. And I came to the prosecutor's office, and this prosecutor came to me and he said, Mike, that's what I want for our county. That's what I want to do in the county. And I was tasked with, alongside Anthony Piero and other members of our staff, to go out and have programs that are successful and relevant and productive. And then the prosecutor, turned it on its heels when he told me, Mike, we're going to try something different. We're going to go out and let the kids present to us, and then we're going to bring the information back, and we're going to develop programs based on that. So that being said, the first time in my law enforcement career that has happened. It's a tribute to him and his leadership and all of my colleagues that work alongside us in this office. And overall, what we want and what I know we have between us is trust. And we want to hear you, and we want to help you, and we want to make these things happen standing right beside you. And I can't wait to hear from you guys tonight. I know that as the prosecutor is waiting to hear from you, and I know we're going to be successful together, and I look forward to the things that we're going to do, and they're going to be great.
Thanks, Mike. So next we're going to hear from Dave D'Amico. Dave is also the president of the Bias Crimes Officers Association. And I've never had a single interaction with Dave where I didn't learn something after he spoke. So I just actually texted my wife and I said, if you're still on, make sure you listen to Dave D'Amico. So she said, I'm very impressed with Anthony Piero too. So just so you know, Anthony. But Dave, I really appreciate you taking the time. He's another guy who never says no, and I really appreciate you being here. So I look forward to hearing about the pyramid.
Yeah, Mr. Prosecutor, thank you very much. And seriously, it is an extreme honor to be amongst such heroes, leaders, and role models of the team that you've compiled today and all the great work that's happening in Ocean County. I'm coming to you live from Middlesex County right now, but I was a Toms River resident for about 10 years of my life, living in Toms River, loving that community. I feel like I'm a part of that community, and to be back invited again and again by you and your staff, it's rewarding for me, and it's an honor to be here. I just want to see if I can share my PowerPoint quickly. If we can get this up. Yeah, let's see if we can get that. All right, I think I lost you guys. Can you guys see that? Good. Okay, great. Thank you. So let's see. All right, awesome. So, so real quick, Mr. Prosecutor and team, and everybody that's joined us tonight, I am representing the New Jersey Bias Crime Officers Association, the Ocean County Prosecutor, and the Prosecutor's Office and team of law enforcement professionals are a member of our team. The New Jersey Bias Crime Officers Association is made up of law enforcement professionals from every level of federal, state, county, and local law enforcement. Our mission is to ensure trust and promote a positive working relationship between law enforcement and the community in which we serve. Our bias crime liaisons are trained to identify bias-motivated incidents, investigate and prosecute the crime of bias intimidation, and to be a direct point of contact at any time for anything. We've developed and implemented numerous law enforcement training seminars, partner with the Attorney General's office and other stakeholders to develop and implement community outreach efforts across the state, and most recently provided educational outreach events to middle schools, high schools, colleges, and universities. As we all know, bias incidents and bias crimes are message crimes. The victim is selected because of who they are. The victimization is targeted and extremely emotional. Most victims experience a series of incidents which may escalate before they feel comfortable in notifying law enforcement. What we also know is that nobody is born with a gene of hate. Just think about it. When you're born, you're crawling around in diapers on your living room floor. You don't care the skin color, the race, the religion, the ethnic background, the national origin, the sexual orientation, the gender or gender identity, the ethnicity of who you play with or who comes to visit you or who comes in your home. And so that just tells us that we're not born with a gene of hate. So how do bias, prejudice, and stereotypes affect us? Well, if we do nothing about bias, prejudice, stereotypes, which is all learned behavior, we're taught this, then it will ultimately end up to the pinnacle, the peak, the top, which is hate. And I'd like to illustrate that by showing you our pyramid of prejudice that we put together, which really describes how bias happens, what we can do about it, and the difference between what Alyssa was talking about and Mike, a bias incident and a bias crime. So everything we do in life has a foundation, everything. Right now, we're in the foundation of coming together as a team to support each other, to eradicate bias, prejudice, stereotypes, not only in Ocean County, but across the state. Your home has a foundation. If it didn't have a concrete slab or a basement, when the wind blew, your house would blow down. So everything in life that we do has a foundation, including hate. Foundation of hate is very simple to understand. If you look here at our foundation of our pyramid, it's ignorance. And I know the prosecutor alluded to it, Alyssa alluded to it, and many of our speakers tonight are going to address it. But when we think about ignorance, it is learned behavior. And there's only one way to stop ignorance. There's only one way to break the foundation of this pyramid. There's only one way to stop hate from ever happening, and that is to eradicate the ignorance. There's only one way to do that, and that is through education, to educate, to have conversations, to try to understand what it's like to walk a day in somebody else's shoes. Now, I guarantee you, if we knock that foundation, that ignorance, that learned behavior out, it won't grow. it will not work its way up. But if we allow the ignorance that we've been taught to grow, it moves to the next level. And the next level is what we call a verbal act of indirect prejudice. Very, very low level. A lot of times it's First Amendment freedom of speech. I like to say that a lot of times it is jokes and rumors and comments and innuendos. Now, look, it's learned behavior. We're learning it from somebody. We verbalize it, we spread it, and feelings about the sliced groups are discussed with like-minded friends. Now, at this stage right here, just like at the bottom, the ignorance level, we can knock it out. We can stop it right there. We can say, not here, no way, not in Ocean County, not in my school, not in front of me. But if we don't, then it moves up to the next level of the pyramid of prejudice. And the next level is what we call the avoidance stage. This happens early on in life as well. That's why it's so important to speak with, to listen to our young adults, our heroes, leaders, and role models, our juveniles, our school kids, our college kids, because this happens early on in life. I want you to think back to when you may have been in elementary school or middle school. I don't want that kid sitting at my lunch table. He's one of them, she's one of them. I don't want, I'm not picking that kid to be on my gym team. He's one of them, she's one of them. Hey, I'm not getting dressed in front of that kid in the locker room. He's one of them, she's one of them. It's where we, human beings, take other human beings and we start putting them in categories of us versus them. Now look, heroes, leaders, and role models, we can stop it right there. But if we don't, it moves up to the next stage. The next stage is a little bit uglier. It's the exclusion stage. This was never more prevalent right now with the rise of bias incidents, not only in New Jersey, but across the country. But it was never more prevalent right after the terrorist act of September 11th, when common, average, everyday people, who are neighbors, business owners, our friends, people we knew and we trusted, they became the enemy because they looked like the terrorists. They were perceived to be a part of a terrorist group because of the religious values that they had, or because of their national origin or the country that they may have immigrated, their family may have immigrated from. We saw this ugliness happen right in front of our eyes, where we went from the bottom of the pyramid all the way up to the exclusion stage in a matter of minutes. Now, like I said, heroes, leaders, and role models, we can stop it right there. What I'd also like to take a moment to describe is this section of the pyramid, from the ignorance stage up to the exclusion stage. No crime has been committed. So law enforcement's hands are tied here. So that's where we need your help. That's where we need you, the community stakeholders, the passionate heroes, leaders, and role models who want to do something to eradicate the bias, not, like want to say, no way, not here, not in front of me. Because this down here is a bias incident. Now, as you'll learn momentarily after I get done illustrating the pyramid of prejudice, I'll talk to you about what we're obligated to do, not only as a community, but what law enforcement is obligated to do through the Attorney General's directive. Right down here is a bias incident. It went from the bottom of the pyramid, the learned ignorance behavior, all the way up to the exclusion stage. We can stop it right there. But if we don't, it crosses what I call the point of no return. And the point of no return is this line right here. And that is the difference between the exclusion stage and an actual bias crime. And as Alyssa indicated before, a bias crime, you don't have a bias crime unless you have an underlying crime, an underlying offense. And that underlying offense is motivated by who the person is: race, color, religion, gender, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, national origin, or ethnicity. And every one of those are protected classes within the state of New Jersey. Also, they're protected classes under our federal statutes, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crimes Act. But right here, what we're looking at is that is how a bias crime happens. A bias crime never starts at the bottom of this pyramid. So we have an obligation as heroes, leaders, and role models to stop it before it reaches that stage. But once it reaches that stage, make no mistake about it, that under direction of the Ocean County prosecutor, the chief law enforcement officer of Ocean County, there is a zero tolerance. Detectives will be responding to these incidents. You'll be investigated. The victim will be spoken to. A victim witness statement will be taken. And we will do everything we can in our power to bring the perpetrator of that to justice. Most bias incidents start off, again, at a low level: harassment, terroristic threats. Maybe they'll escalate to simple assault. Hopefully not, but maybe aggravated assault. And if we do nothing about bias crimes, we do nothing at all about bias crimes, then it moves up to the pinnacle, the peak, the top of our pyramid of prejudice. And what you're looking at there is not only the pyramid of prejudice. how bias happens and what we can do about it. But what you're looking at there is also a blueprint of history. If we look at this pyramid right here, it's also a blueprint of history. If we think back to World War II, this is Adolf Hitler's blueprint from the bottom to the top. If we think as recent as September 11th, this is Osama bin Laden's blueprint from the bottom to the top. And as the prosecutor alluded to it, ignorance is nothing more than fear, fear of the unknown. If we do nothing about fear of the unknown and don't educate ourselves about what it's like to walk a day in somebody else's shoes and talk, have a conversation, and communicate, that fear turns to prejudice. If we do nothing about the prejudice that we've learned, because prejudice is learned behavior, then that prejudice turns to hate. And if we do nothing about hate, then that hate turns to violence. And we've seen it now with the rise of bias incidents and bias crimes across the country. We've also seen it right here in our own state of New Jersey. And as you heard from Prosecutor Bellheimer right there in Ocean County. Now, what we're going to ask you to do here as leaders and role models, number one, I really want to thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight, to listen to what I had to say, and to engage with the stakeholders in our New Jersey and Ocean County community. But what we're going to ask you to do is the same thing that the Attorney General mandates law enforcement to do. Bias crime investigations are based on 3 factors, and we call them the 3 R's. The first R is to recognize. Recognize when somebody or something is doing or saying something that's motivated by bias. Please don't ignore it. Please don't look the other way. Recognize that it's happening. And you should know that every law enforcement officer in New Jersey, from the academy level all the way through to in-service training, is trained to recognize how to deal with a bias incident and how to prosecute a bias crime or bring the perpetrator of a bias crime to justice. So recognition is the most important part. We have to recognize when it's happening, and we have to do something about it. And what we're going to ask you to do is the second R, respond to it, do something. So the key is, I'm going to steal this from our Homeland Security partners. If you see something, say something. Please report it. And I recognize that it may be difficult at times to get into a strange person's conversation or, get involved in a hostile free speech that's happening or an argument that's taking place. It's okay if you don't want to get involved right there. But once you recognize it, we're going to ask you to report it. And I'm not asking you to be a rat or a snitch. I've dealt with rats and snitches my entire career. A rat and snitch is somebody who's in the principal's office, they're down at the police station, they're under arrest, they're in trouble, and to get out of trouble, they're going to throw somebody else under the bus. Tonight's conversation is not with rats and snitches. Tonight's conversation that we're having is with heroes, leaders, and role models. And heroes, leaders, and role models, they do the right thing even when nobody else is looking. I'm going to implore you, everybody on our team and everybody listening tonight, partnering with the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, to recognize when bias happens in front of you, to do something by responding to it, and to please report it. Pick up the phone, call your local police, call somebody of authority, and let them know what's going on. Because under the Attorney General's directive, it is extremely clear. And this is also the Ocean County Prosecutor's rules and regulations and directive and every other law enforcement executive in the state. Police officers must recognize bias. They must properly respond to it. We have no discretion whatsoever. We have to do something. And then we must fill out a separate supplemental incident report so that we have a finger on the pulse of what's going on in our communities in New Jersey. And with that, Mr. Prosecutor and elite team of heroes, leaders, and role models, I just want to leave you with my contact information. Anything at any time. That is my office number directly here at the Middlesex County Department of Corrections. My cell number, that's my personal cell. Text, call, email, and my direct email address. Because I believe that with you, the heroes, leaders, and role models in our communities, dedicated heroes, leaders, and role models who will do the right thing even when nobody else is looking, we can stamp out hate. We can do what's right, and we can work for our most vulnerable victims, somebody who's selected for no other reason who they are. So, Mr. Prosecutor and team, it has been an absolute pleasure to spend this evening with you, and I look forward to answering questions, and I thank you very much.
Dave, thank you so much. I'm blown away every time I hear you talk, and I appreciate you taking the time. And Dave was instrumental in, everybody's back. Dave was instrumental in assisting us in training all of the law enforcement officers here in Ocean County on bias training, implicit bias and bias training. We did that in July of 2020 because it was important to me at that moment in time, based on what was happening in the country and in other states, not necessarily here in New Jersey, but as Nickerson mentioned, you know, he was involved in some of those protests, and I was at some of those protests as well. I thought it was very important as the chief law enforcement officer here in Ocean County to mandate that training for all of our over 1,600 police officers, and Dave was a big help in implementing that training. So all of our officers here in Ocean County have been trained in bias incidents and recognizing bias incidents. So one of the things that Dave brought up, and I think I'm looking forward to opening up the discussion and talking more, letting you all get your voices heard, that I did mention in the beginning, but Dave kind of alluded to, bias incidents in general. When I go talk, when I've been in Lakewood and I've talked throughout Ocean County, the main thing I always say is we can't do anything about it if you don't tell us about it. Bias incidents are one of the most underreported crimes in the state of New Jersey. So the numbers that we talk about, the numbers that we were just discussing, 1,433 bias incidents in New Jersey in 2020. Those are just the ones that were reported, right? We know there was more. We know that sometimes people feel vulnerable, they feel subjugated in some way, and they don't want to come forward and tell us about them. But I'm imploring all of you, as I'll steal Dave's line, heroes, leaders, and role models, because you are that, whether you realize it or not, that if you can go back to your schools and your communities and tell your friends and everybody you talk to, we can't do anything about it if we don't know about it. And I promise you, as the chief law enforcement officer here in Ocean County, that all of those crimes will be investigated and, if we can, prosecuted. There is a zero tolerance policy here in Ocean County, and there should be all over the state, I would hope. So now that we've gotten all this stuff out of the way, I would like to hear from you. And I think one of the opening questions I have, because we have such a diverse group of young adults here, is I'd like to hear really what your experience has been at your educational institutions, right? Whether you're in high school, whether you're in college at this point, how you've gotten to this point, and do you feel represented in your school? You know, kind of your experience in one of the recommendations of the task force report on combating youth bias was really kind of major curriculum changes and teaching about bias in school. One of the things that I read in the report that stuck with me is one of the students said, you know, I've probably had 30 math classes, 15 science classes at this point, but I haven't had one class in high school that teaches me how to be a better human being, right? We're not teaching that in school. So I haven't had any classes that teach me how to be more tolerant, that teach me how to be more understanding. So the report in and of itself recommends those curriculum changes. And I'm hopeful that the Department of Education is going to take that up. So I'd like to hear from each of you. And I don't know, I don't particularly want to call on people because I wasn't a big fan of that in law school. So those of you that feel free to just tell me what your experience was like, tell us all so that we can hear, you know, what was going on in your schools. Anybody want to start? There you go, Lina. Thank you.
So for me, coming from a school that's predominantly white, and there's 5% of Black students at our school, I truly do feel underrepresented, especially within, you know, the students I'm in school with, especially in the STEM Academy, and where I'm the only person of color. I don't feel represented, and that's not only among my peers; it's all among my teachers as well. And being in my school district, the Jackson School District, for the past 12 years, I have not once had a teacher of color. And so for me, I feel that's very prominent and hindering my educational process as well, because I don't see people who look like me representing my education and what I'm being taught. And so I really think that, you know, these changes start with the pedagogical decisions made within the classroom. And one thing I can point out is especially the educational tools we are given. The texts that we are given within the classroom are not, of course, like I've mentioned, not representative of diverse opinions and different points of views. And so I feel like that's really where it begins. And I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to speak with my superintendent. Once in a while, our diversity group, which I'm president of as well as my school, we meet with community leaders and with her as well, the superintendent, to talk about these changes we want to be seeing. And that's definitely something that she's mentioned and something that we're working towards. And I understand it's a slow progression. But when we don't see curriculum and also the material being used in class representing who we are as students and what our perspectives are as underrepresented students, it can really, damage us as not seeing a diverse and inclusive agenda to what we want to receive education wise. So for me, I think that what has worked is being engaged. And I feel like as a student that was very shy when I started growing up, I never felt like Jasmine said, that my voice is heard. And I think that minority students feel that most of the time that our voices are overshadowed a lot of the times and overspoken by other white students or other students that are not a minority. And so I really think that it took me a while, especially trying to become a leader and speak up and know that my voice is heard. So I think I really want to emphasize that point that, we are here to make sure that our voices are heard and that we shouldn't be afraid to be able to express that. And so being able to sort out connections with the superintendent and with the heads of our schools and our district is something that was really pivotal and important for our school district, and something that I've seen changes already being made. And just a quick reference is this is the first time for Black History Month that I've seen my school do something really prevalent. And every morning on morning announcements, there's an announcement being read about a prevalent Black figure in history and what they've done for our society. And so that's the first time, even though I'm not in school in person because I'm a remote student, I'm glad to hear that that is being implemented. And so I'm really glad to see that first few steps being taken. And I'm happy to know that I'm part of that change and that that change will be continuing to be made after I leave the school district as well.
Yeah, I think that the situation that Alina described at her district is actually very similar in Point Pleasant. In all of my years growing up here, diversity has not been a huge part of the conversation, whether it's racial diversity, gender diversity, all these different topics that you could discuss. And it's not really a part of the classroom. But this year, especially, there has been a lot of changes happening. Our staff is a little bit more diverse, I've noticed, and I think that that's so important, like you said, Elena, being able to see yourself represented in the people who are teaching you how to be a person, how to be a human, And so that's really exciting change. And obviously the Diversity Council is very exciting because, again, it wasn't part of the conversation before. And where are you going to have these conversations if you're not having them at school, in your homes? So, and another thing that's very exciting is the curriculum, like you talked about, needs to be diversified. Like growing up, especially like freshman, sophomore year, a lot of the literature that we were reading in English classes was all voices from Europe, very European voices, a lot of white British authors, and a lot of similar themes. But as years have passed, we have a lot more diverse voices. And this year in particular, we are reading a lot of African American authors in our English classes, which is very exciting. And we're able to get access to more different perspectives and learn what other people's lives are like outside of Point Pleasant and outside of our demographic. So there's a lot of exciting change going on, but I think there's still work to be done because it's just beginning. So that's what the situation is like in Point Pleasant.
I'm from Manalapan, which is in Monmouth County, but I'm glad to be here to take some of the information from here to my school. But as Dave stated before, that it's learned from at a young age, so it should really start in elementary school, being able to, like Sunny said, learn about authors that aren't just English white authors, learn about some young African American authors to empower the youth, like minority youth, because I know, like Alina said, this is the first year that I've had an African American teacher, any minority teacher at all. So, and she's not even really, she doesn't really teach about like African American authors because it's not in the curriculum. And I heard my Spanish teacher say last week, we were doing something for Black History Month, and she was saying she was trying to get it done before the end of the month because they wouldn't let her teach it in March or April. So just it being in the curriculum is so important because it really, like Lina said, it silences the minority voices.
To say, I graduated 2011 in high school, Lakewood, and Lakewood High School in this Lakewood School District has always struggled since I've been in elementary all the way to high school. And it wasn't until
So Kameria's audio is lagging a little bit. Sorry about that, Kameria.
I can't hear her at all. Can you guys hear her or no? No. Oh, she's back.
Am I here?
Kameria, we couldn't hear you for a few minutes there, for a few seconds. Maybe you could start over. Your audio is lagging behind. Your lips moving, but we can't hear you. Anybody?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I had to all right, so I muted and then I unmuted myself. So I'll start again. I said Lakewood, the Lakewood.
Yeah, so Kameria, we're gonna call Kameria and just work out the audio issue, but she's lagging behind.
Okay, in the meantime, let me just jump in. Kameria, we're going to call you. You're frozen again, but Paul's going to try to work with you to get your audio working at the same speed so that we can hear you. So one of the things that we noticed, and can you guys hear her or no? No. Okay, so one of the things that the takeaways we got when we went to the schools, and that also referenced in the report, is that there are not a lot of representative teaching staff at the high school level, that you're not learning from teachers that look like you or sound like you or that have the same experiences as you. And that was one of the things that we took back to the superintendents to try to let them know that it's not representative of whatever your culture may be. So that's one of the things I think the report is very specific in addressing, some very specific changes. And you're also not learning, you're not reading books by people, you're reading the same people over and over again. So Alina, I appreciate you bringing that up, and Sonny for bringing that up as well, because I think it's something that we need to address. You're underrepresented, not only in your school, but in your curriculum. So that's definitely something that I think is real, that we need to address. So I don't want to step on this whole conversation, but Kameria was talking about Lakewood. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in who's got an audio connection. I don't like calling on people, but I wanted to hear your experiences. Hey, yeah, we can hear you now. All right, I'll mute myself.
All right. So I'm gonna go back. So 2011, I graduated at Lakewood High School, and in my
It's just not working out for us, Kameria.
We're working with Kameria. I think Kameria, it would be best if Kameria moved to another area of the house.
Sometimes, Paul, that's easier said than done.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So she's gone. Okay. So that's one of the. I'm sorry that we're having those problems. Does anybody else want to share anything what their experiences have been like in school?
I can
Thank
go.
you, Raelyn.
So, my time at High School East, I graduated in 2019. I was completely in the closet. I was still going by my legal dead name. And it's really hard to see that any kind of representation for the LGBTQ plus community within it, because if it's a sexuality or sexual orientation, people don't know unless if you say something, and if you don't actively go around saying what your orientation might be. And gender wise, my school had no way of really showing that. So they had no way of asking kids, hey, what are your pronouns? So that they could say these things comfortably. And for the concept of pronouns, even at OCC, it's not normalized. So I, on the regular, get misgendered by my professors. And they don't know any better because there's no way of them knowing. And both OCC and High School East had that issue. I had no way of expressing myself really at either. I'm in the Student Support Services program at OCC, and the only reason why I've been able to express myself so much is because Megan Miskin, who is the director, is very progressive in putting pronouns in emails and such, which that's the only time I've ever seen it. So I know that's a big issue that I dealt with. Like, I had no comfort in high school. I had Donna Lisi, the student assistant coordinator, who is the only one I could really talk about my struggles figuring out my gender and sexuality.
Well, at least I'm happy that you had Dawn, because Dawn was actually a probation officer that Anthony Piero would remember, and I got to work with Dawn early in my career. And when I became prosecutor as a SEC, I reached out to her to do some anti-vaping stuff, and she's great. But I hear what she's fantastic. So
yeah.
I hear what you're saying about being under represented, and I think that people struggle with for whatever reason the pronouns. And I can tell you, I'm doing this here in my office at the prosecutor's office, and I brought my 16-year-old daughter, who's in the next room, on her own laptop listening, because I wanted to make sure my wife and my other daughter listening at home. And as soon as you spoke, Raelyn, my daughter came in and she advised me make sure you use the right pronouns. You know, she's very in tune, and she keeps me in tune. But I guess the question is, how do we get everybody else on board? You know, as Dave said, bias and hatred and just the fear of the unknown. You're not really born with that. So it creeps in over the course of your lifetime. And when we're dealing with this type, how do we help? I don't know, help us try to figure out how we can tell people how to understand.
Yeah, I have a jean jacket. I almost wore it today that has pronouns pins. So I try to do that to give that extra leg. So on it, it says they/them, and I've had people actually see it and recognize it. But I think half that battle is people don't even know it's there because they don't know that that's even a thing. So, and even in classrooms, like with attendance and things, if asking pronouns, like, or having it even be part of like an introduction, like I didn't do it today on accident, but part of my introduction is saying, hi, I'm Raelyn, my pronouns are they, them, or he, him. And it makes that, and people know, and I've had it like really actually make the difference in conversations.
That just goes to show you my 16-year-old is way ahead of me, because she came in and said those exact pronouns, and I looked off, but I was supposed to be here, and she went back. So I appreciate you really being a part of this, because your voice is important, and it's important to, you know, interpersonal connections, talking about this, letting other people understand is the most important thing we can do to kind of break down these silos. And I know it takes a lot of courage.
I really appreciate it, because this is the first time I've ever really been heard.
Thank you. Well, your voice is definitely being heard, and I'll make the same offer to all of you that are on this, that if my office can support you in any way, and hopefully when your school gets back to some sense of normalcy, we'd be happy to come out and speak to the students in your school. We'd be happy to support any of the programs. We work extensively with Ocean County College. We have a great relationship with them. Mike Caldwell has a direct line to Jan Kirsten, and we talk to her all the time. And she is so supportive of the programs that we are trying to implement. And as Mike alluded to, there's many different programs we were trying to put together, but then COVID happened, and you know, we had schools lined up, and then we had to cancel them in March of last year because of COVID, and we just haven't been able to get back. So I appreciate you really sharing that with us. Now, anybody else want to talk a little bit about their experiences in high school?
Is it me? I'm back.
She's back.
Hey, I'm not in high school. I'm in college. Well, I'm a master's at Mountain. But when I was I graduated from the Lakewood School District back in 2011, and Lakewood School District in general has always struggled. We have been struggling with the movement of principals. We have been struggling with the movement of just education in general. And I think our our kids in the district has lacked consistency so much. So, you know, it's so hard for, even when I was a kid growing up in the Lakewood district, to even stick with a teacher. It was hard to even stick with someone that looks like you because budget cuts, because of you know, teachers quitting or teachers transferring to another school that provided what they were looking for in their position. So, I mean, with educating, yes, but I'm speaking for Lakewood, consistency is the key with us. I mean, I'm still part of Lakewood School District, I feel like, because I'm always helping, you know, a child, or I'm always providing something that a child is lacking within, as far as resources within the school district, even on the Board of Education. And I have to speak because I've been on the board. I've been actually the president of Lakewood High School when I was in high school, and I sat on the Board of Education, and I was the only African American woman on the Board of Education that looked like a lot of the youth that were in the school district. And then, you know, once I graduated, there was nobody that, you know, that took my place, so that the whole position just, you know, disappeared. But the consistency, if there were teachers, if there was a curriculum with the consistency of even in Black History Month, Black History is not just February, it's the whole year. So now, you know, when different things happen in the world, that's when conversations are provoked. That's the only time. That's how I feel. So it needs to be consistency. It needs to be consistency with the curriculum. It needs to be more hire of teachers that look like, you know, African American students. And I know a lot of youth, they transition into different districts. Even when I was in high school, they go to Toms River, they find a bus or they find transportation to go to these different schools that offer what they have been lacking at Lakewood. And Lakewood is a beautiful, you know, a school district to be a part of. It's successful people that came out of. We have Rose, she's on here. But it's just consistency that we lack, consistency of programs, because we always struggle with budget cuts. So when there's no funds, there's no program. So, you know, it's unfair because we come to get an education, and we come to learn how to be a human being, how to grow into being an adult. And I didn't learn more about my culture and my heritage, yes, at home, but when I went away to college, I learned about they had African American history, and I learned about the African diaspora and all those things, which I should have learned, you know, in elementary or even in kindergarten, in middle school and high school. And, you know, it's like, I think someone else said, it's the same repetitive, you know, information over and over again. I know about Martin Luther King. I can tell you about Martin Luther King. I can tell you about Malcolm X, but there's so many more different people than those, you know, than those people to learn about. Even African American young scholars that are growing up, we don't know about them unless we hear them perform at the Super Bowl or perform somewhere, and then we get to see. So, I mean, I think the curriculum is outdated. I'll just be honest, like, different things are outdated, and it needs to be brought to date so young kids that are growing up can relate. If not, they're going to struggle. It shouldn't be all the time that we hear about something when something happened with George Floyd and we're marching. And, you know, it shouldn't be just when something tragic happens. It has to be the beauty of the moment of just growing and seeing that child succeed, and the information that is given when they're in kindergarten all the way to high school. And like I said, I didn't learn a lot about my history more in depth when I got to college, and I became I had a minor in Africa kind of world studies, and that's how I'm in tune to what's going on with my heritage, because I lacked that when I was growing up in the Lakewood School District. But consistency in Lakewood has been an issue. Principals being moved around, school district has been like a crazy, and I know it's still going on because I've been fighting, you know, on the Board of Education as well, on board meetings and sending letters and emails in. And I don't think it's a time where it's like a frustration and people start to give up because there's no hope. And that's just Lakewood. I love Lakewood. I love where I'm from, but it's just no consistency, and we lack that. So, a change got to come, and you know, it's sad. Like, you know, I don't know when it's gonna happen, but sometimes we gotta listen up, show up, stand up, and then follow up. And a lot of people just give up in that follow up process because they see it's no hope, or, you know, a certain group of people can take over at any moment. And we don't know. We don't know budget cuts. We don't know if Lakewood will shut down. We don't know. So we're like just out there on a limb, just, you know, figuring it out. And I'm just speaking from when I was in Lakewood district, school district, all the way till now. And I've been out of the high school for over 10 years. So it's still the same repetitive thing. And I mean, I'm here. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be in Ocean County, but while I'm here, you know, I'm willing to fight and do what I have to do to bring some type of change into the district. You know, so I mean, I think those important meetings that need to happen with the superintendent and people on the Board of Education, so they understand. And you know, even when the voices of young kids speak at these Board of Education meetings, yeah, it's like talking to the wall, to be honest. You know, and they say they're gonna do it or they're working towards it, and there's like something that happens and then it just stops. So like consistency is something that we struggle, and I just want to voice that. And that's been my experience from when I was in the school district, even now.
Thanks, Kameria. I hope that you choose to stay here at Ocean County because we could use your voice and we can use your strength in Lakewood. New Jersey is one of the most diverse states in the country, and Lakewood is a microcosm of that. Lakewood is a very diverse community, and we've been spending a lot of time trying to work in Lakewood and trying to bring certain groups together. So we're hopeful that those efforts are going to pay off. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that having this conversation is a big part of that. So anybody else want to talk about? Thanks, Jasmine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to bounce off what Kameria said. It wasn't until I went to college that I started to learn more about America's past. And I'm talking about how we devalued life, how America's history of freedom, where we're founded on, it wasn't really free. We had slaves. And I feel like our schools don't talk about that so often. And I was in a class for college called The Politics of Blackness, and we were able to learn about behind the scenes of the Civil War, what these slaves were going through. And if our students right now don't know about our past, and we don't know how to define hate that that these African Americans went through during the 1800s, during the 1900s, during the civil rights era, if we don't know what hate looks like back then we don't know what hate looks like right now. And I think that's what's happening in most of our schools, is that we don't have a true definition of what hate and bias looks like within our schools. And that for that reason, there's this huge silence culture, because if we don't know what hate looks like in our schools, then no one's going to speak up about hate because we don't know what it looks like. And I mean, that's what happened when I was in high school, and I know Matteo can testify to that as well. And students don't speak up about the humiliation of being made fun of in class, the microaggression, the jokes, the sly comments. No one talks about it because it seems so normal, but it's not. It's hurtful, and it hurt me, and it still marks me to this day. And it really defines a person, and it really holds them back. It limits them to really speaking up and sharing their feelings, their experiences with hate and discrimination within school. And truly, it's something that is learned. Discrimination and hate, it's learned, just like Chief D'Amico, is that how you pronounce it? Is that, yeah. And since we don't define hate in our schools right now, change is never going to come. And it's not until we define what hate looks like in our schools, not until we have these conversations, sharing what we've gone through, what different ethnicities and different cultures have gone through, that's change is never going to come. And I was so happy when the prosecutor came to our school back in last year in February, where these students finally spoke up about discrimination that they face, and everyone was so shocked because everyone thought it was normal. These jokes were thought of as normal, but they're not, and how they continuously marked them, and how our own administrators, our own teachers thought these jokes were normal as well. And when we try to bring up these hurtful experiences, we were immediately shut down because people were defensive, because they covered up with saying, it was just a joke. I didn't mean it. You're supposed to know it was a joke. You're not supposed to take it seriously, but it's not a joke. It hurts, and it's marking our youth, and it's making them silent. It's making them not want to speak up. And I was one of them. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. Do you have any?
I just wanted to bring up something Chief D'Amico said. It was about how learned behavior that we're taught it's repeated when it isn't addressed. So we need to define what hate looks like now so we can start a change for the future.
And I also want to I just want to say this, it was on my mind. And I just want to say, you know, creating a safe place, a safe space for our youth, whether it's in school, whether it's outside of the school component. And it, like I said, consistency, I'm big on consistency. So that safe place, I experienced having a safe place when I got to college. I've seen so many diverse things that took place on the campus where like it was an African American classroom or building or room that was just for like African Americans, and then you had for the the Latinos. You had a safe place for different cultures to come to and just whether they want to sit around and talk about different things that they were experiencing, but a safe place where we had the center in Lakewood, but it's not a center, it's closed down. But just maybe if there was a building or a safe place that could be identified for more cases and more different things to be brought to the light than to be hidden, I think that could be a step to create something or a building or something that we can have for our youth to come there anonymously if they want to voice something that's been bothering them, or a hotline, but it's something that can be consistent and someone will answer and can give them an answer and not leave them on hold or leave them hanging with their situation, and know who to go to when they're experiencing a hate or in a bias situation they experience, whether it's in school or whether outside of school, at a grocery store or any place. So I think a safe place or a safe space overall in different counties or communities need to be established. I don't know if that's something that we can do, but I think we have good representation from different counties where we can figure out, maybe in a library, if there's a room in a library that's vacant, or maybe at the prosecutor's office, is there a room there?
Let's go. Come on. Go on
us
in.
that we can come to and just be there. Maybe we could do office hours or something, and somebody is there, 2 hours out the week or 3 hours out the week, and we advertise that, so it's a safe space or a safe place for youth and adults, if they need to come and maybe give out resources and give out different things for people to know that these resources and these programs or these people are here for you, and you could come and safe. You don't have to feel like nobody's targeting you or somebody's out to get you. Safe place, safe space, I think.
I just wanted to add to what Kameria and Jasmine were saying, because you guys are college students and you were saying that that's the first time you were exposed to either education or safe spaces, like you were saying, Kameria. And I think that's really jarring that students have to wait till you're in college or 18 plus to be able to have that access. And for me, I'm very grateful that I found a safe space starting 6th grade within Rays of Hope. And also I went to school on Saturdays as well, to a place called Teen Sharp, and I went to Camden every Saturday, and I learned about race relations and race and politics. And so I had to sought out those resources and had to find that, and I'm grateful to have parents who allowed me to explore those spaces. And so I think, to just quickly add, it's kind of sad that we have to sought out these experiences and these spaces. It should be integrated within the school system, but that I think it is amazing that we do have those resources and that I had the opportunity to expand on that. So I think I just wanted to quickly add that it shouldn't start once we graduate from high school. It should start, like we've mentioned, since kindergarten and when we are in lower education, K through 12.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Who else? Go ahead, Jayla.
I wanted to add that I really appreciate the prosecutor's office for having like a safe space for this, because highlighting like hate crimes that occur will help demonstrate that the importance of teaching about diversity and inclusion at a young age is like really important. So like all of us, well, most of us, we're in high school now, and I feel as though we should have started learning about like hate crimes that happen in our community, regardless if they're in school or not, in elementary school. So we understand that that's wrong and we can't continue to do these things in the future.
I think you guys absolutely right with safe places. And like I think our ultimate goal is to get to the point where a safe space can be everywhere and everyone, where we have enough education that any person is someone you can go to learn and to feel understood and listened to. So I think that's really the common thread that we're all sort of picking at here when we say that this needs to be a bigger part of education and that we need our staff to be more diverse. I think that it's a big and it's a lofty goal, but eventually we should be at the point where everywhere is a safe space and like you can go to your literary magazine meeting and talk about diversity. You can go to math class and talk about diversity. Not a problem. I think that trying to get to a point where everyone understands this and everyone's capable of listening and speaking about it.
I absolutely think that that's a very valid point, and I actually want to go back to something that Alina said in terms of seeking resources. I am so grateful for the Diversity Council for the educational resources and opportunities that it has provided to us, especially as white students in a predominantly white town. But I do feel that, you should have to take the action to educate yourself, especially when I believe it's your ethical and moral responsibility to learn the effects of systemic racism and how it impacts your community and the people around you. I feel that because racism is systemic, education should be as well. I feel that we need teachers who are willing to commit themselves to being an anti-racist educator, as well as students who are willing to learn and to do the work. And I want to go back also to something that Chief D'Amico said about how the bottom tier of the pyramid was ignorance. And I feel like, especially, in my own experiences, a lot of people are ignorant, but that ignorant isn't always willful. Sometimes it's just people don't know any better. Because I feel like, we were talking a lot about learning about Black history, and we're kind of just repeating kind of the same narratives over and over again, and no one's really going the extra mile to teach us things that, we might not have already known. And I feel like, when you're learning Black history from a white teacher, it often, sometimes unintentionally skews the perspective. And that's going to affect us as we mature and age through our educational system, especially, like Sunny said, in a place where a lot of our teachers are white. And I feel like, we should have access to obtaining an anti-racist education from the time that we are children and beyond. I really just feel that it's our duty to do so.
Like even just like not even like Black history, but history about sexuality, history about the Native Americans, because all we know is that Christopher Columbus came over and pushed them out of their land, and then that's it. So like yeah, even Native American sexuality, Black history, history about Africa, because I'm taking world history right now, and I've only heard about like Ethiopia. So I want to know about all the different countries. If I'm taking world history, I want to know about the world. So just being able to know about everything on all aspects of life, except that's not just the Civil War and then so on. World War I, World War II. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I could jump in. Go ahead. Who's about? Christopher, you go, because we haven't heard from you. I'd like to hear from you as opposed to me.
Thank you. As Jayla just said too, that a lot of the times we focus, just like Jayla said, about one country. In Africa, I feel the same way as like being first generation Cuban. I feel like that too with a lot of Hispanic heritages and cultures. A lot are denied a lot of the times and grouped together. So I feel like a lot of people have a misconception that all Hispanic people are the same and come from one country. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize that every Hispanic country is different. And there's not just one Hispanic country that we should, that the Diversity Council, I'm really proud to say that we're doing different topics each month, and we really focus on Hispanic heritage, and we made a bulletin board just trying to show the different countries and different ethnicities that make up the Hispanic population.
Well, thank you. And so what we're hearing, and as Sonny said, we're picking at the same thread, is that the educational curriculum needs to change. And I'll just explain to you how it was. I went to Toms River High School South and Toms River schools many, many years ago. But when we were taught about history and Christopher Columbus, he was the hero that discovered America, right? That's how I was taught. And as you guys went through school, you were taught that he was the person that kicked the indigenous people off their land. So I think that progression needs to happen with everything that we're talking about, right? This is a debate, I had with my daughters when they came home and told me about Christopher Columbus. And I was like, well, they taught me he was a hero, but now he's not a hero, right? They don't want to have Columbus Day. So things change over time, and I think that's good. And we have a lot of change to make, right? We have a lot of change to make. I agree. It shouldn't happen when you get to college. When I got to college in early 90s, let's go with that, there was a class called the Holocaust. And I thought, there's a whole class on the Holocaust? Nobody taught me in depth about the Holocaust when I was in high school. We didn't talk about the Holocaust. And I took that class and my mind was literally blown because I didn't know about it because it wasn't taught to me. So I think that's happening now to you. And there's just so much, I agree. You shouldn't have to self-initiate all these things, right? This is the education that should be provided to you. Shbad, I'll get to you in 1 second. This is the education that you should get. It shouldn't learn about things in college for the first time. So I agree with you. And these are all recommendations actually that are in the report. And it's going to be a wholesale change, I think, in the curriculum that you're provided. Shbad, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Shbad frozen.
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you, but your screen is frozen.
I know. I think my video is a little frozen, but do you hear me well?
We can hear you good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just wanted to jump off of what the prosecutor said, and Jasmine, actually so many of you all discussed it. Further is, from my experience, I felt like that sometimes professors, like especially in college, like they'll talk about a subject and it's something they don't even know about. Like, I'll just tell you a quick story that happened to me, which explains what I'm saying. So when I was in OCC, I had a professor who was teaching about different, we were discussing different marriages, and it was actually a really interesting class because it was it went through different cultures and different races, ethnicities, genders. But when she was talking about Jewish people, she said that that Jews have arranged marriages. And I was sitting in the class and I said, Professor, I'm from an Orthodox community, and that's not exactly true. We married for love the same way everybody else does. And I explained to her the process, how it works. And I just felt like it was something that what I took from it is it's a huge step that she was even discussing different cultures and different types of people. But I think it's about knowing what you're talking about, and education and having the right knowledge is a huge part of it. So it's kind of taking everything that everybody's saying, and I just adding that little piece that I think it's knowledge. I'm just going to say one more thing about that, is that I think that what so many people mentioned, the chief had said about, ignorance is where it starts, which is 100% true. I'm just going to add to it where I feel like sometimes if you hear a negative stereotype, let's say you hear in the news that some, of a certain race, of color, anything, did something wrong, somebody who has no exposure to that will put it in their mind as everybody of that gender, race, anything, right? That means that they're all like that. So I feel like it's taking ignorance to a level of the next level. It's it doesn't just end at ignorance, it continues as stereotyping, basically. Well, kind of part of ignorance, but I feel like very often that's where it comes from, just from my experience.
Thanks, Shbad. Your experience is right on. I'll get to you in 1 second, Nicole. Thank you. There is a lot of misconceptions, I think, in Ocean County and within Ocean County about the Orthodox community. And that's one of the things that we work on all the time. And I've been to Lakewood so many times and been in homes and been at Purim parties and been to all the different things. And I come back and I say, listen, when you say Hasidic or you say Orthodox, you don't understand that we're all the same. I've been in the homes. They want the same things that we want. You just don't know them. You don't. So there's this breaking down of the silos that I talk about all the time. Is the ignorance is what the problem is. So I appreciate you, honestly. I appreciate you being on here and talking about it a little bit, because you were in a situation in college where you had to correct the way the professor was teaching about your own culture, right? So that's a problem. There's a reason when I was an adjunct professor at Ocean County College, I only taught criminal law. You know why? Because it's the only thing I know, right? I couldn't teach about other things, because that's what I'm a subject matter expert in. I couldn't teach other things. So a little bit more about the race relations, and I'll get to Nicole, but I wanted to talk to when I went to High School South many years ago, and I want to talk specifically to Nickerson, and maybe you could enlighten me a little bit about how it has been. I know you graduated, but we had issues back then. We had race relation issues it was in the 80s when I was there. And as Kameria mentioned, I think she said she was class president. I was class president of my class at South all 4 years. And in my junior and senior year, we met in Mr. Carell's class. The white leaders, Mr. Carell's still there, right? The white leaders and the African American leaders, we put the chairs in a circle, and we would sit for an hour and we would talk about what the problems were to try to prevent violence from happening in that school. We didn't want kids fighting each other over the differences of the color of their skin. It was happening. And I just wanted to know, because I've been to High School South, I didn't see that. Obviously, I was there during the day, but has that been a problem at High School South, or is that something, Nickerson, that you didn't see anymore? I recognize you as a leader of the school. You were the school mascot, right? I mean, so you must have had some authority, right?
Yes. Actually, I was the first Black Indian at South, like in history.
Wow.
And that made it seem like other people, like other Black guys, can do what I do. So, because everyone that's Black, they usually go to South, like plays football or like to play a sport. Like the Indian was like has always been white. So like me, like it's been 50, I was the 52nd one. So like 52 years before me, the Indian's always been like white. So like doing that, and I got kind of like some hate a little bit about doing it from people saying like I should have just played football, like I'm an athlete, like I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not a cheerleader. And so I just stick to my gut because I don't know anyone after me that's gonna do what I did. So like if I was the first one, like I'm gonna let other people know, like if you're Black, like you just don't have to play sports. Like you know what I mean? Like you don't have to like deal with the stereotypical Black kid does in your school. And it was like a good representation because like we have like now we have like one of the mascots, like 4 mascots, is Black now. And like I think it was really diverse because the princess of my school was also Black. So like each year is getting more diverse, which is good for the school and how it looks.
That is good. I can tell you, Nickerson, when I went to school, my senior year, my best friend, who was my vice president all through high school, his name was Ed Jimenez. He was the Indian back then, and he did about 7,000 push-ups because the football team was really good. Nicole, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that out before I forgot it, but thank you.
Thank you, prosecutor. I just want to say what an honor it is to be a part of this discussion tonight. Also insightful and just amazing to listen to. If it's okay, I'd like to ask everyone a question because I've been the anti-bullying specialist in Lakewood for 4 years before I came over to Point Pleasant Borough. And again, I'm the anti-bullying specialist of the high school. And I hear what you're saying about a safe space. And in my mind, I'm creating one. But I'm asking you, what can we do better as educators to get rid of that snitch, idea that I can't speak up, I can't be an upstander? Like, what could we do tomorrow when we walk in the building to get rid of that and help people come forward and speak up about what's going on when they come across a racial incident or and speak up? Like, what could we do?
Quickly start to get the conversation rolling. But for me, I remember a lot of incidents happening at my school, racially charged incidents, where my Black friend group was targeted. And we do have a Black vice principal at our school, and we have meetings now with our superintendent and with the principal and the vice principal of our schools, and we're told, well, you could always come to us. Why didn't you file a report? Why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? And I think that was surrounding the fact that we didn't feel heard, because we would speak up to teachers, and just our voices weren't being heard, and it was kind of dismissed because it was happening in front of teachers. It was happening by teachers sometime, or administration. And so when you have those people around, or creating that environment of where we don't feel like safe and comfortable, it tends to then be like we can't go to those same people to express what's happening, because we've already experienced our experiences were being dismissed. So I think that first it should be recognized that we can have a safe space with teachers, and that should be communicated. And it is, but it most of the time it's being said that it needs to be taken down a route professionally, that we need to file a report, or we need to take it a little bit more of a serious action. And sometimes we just want to talk about our experiences. So I think that might be the first step of making it a more casual conversation, especially with teachers that look like us, because I know the counselor that's specific to more based on discrimination and more specific things that happen in the schools, that teacher or that counselor is white, and so we don't feel comfortable most of the time to go talk to someone who might not really understand what we're talking about, because frankly, you can't, if I can't relate to you and you can't relate to me, then sometimes I just don't feel my voice is heard. And I have expressed concern to guidance counselors in previous years, and so have my friends, and it's just not something that's quite being taken seriously at the guidance level as well. So I think that implementing, people that look like us, as well as just letting us talk without having to make a serious, claim, or make something really important happening. I think it's really important to just have that communication line open. So that's for me what the first step might be.
I think the word snitching needs to be, I don't think the word snitch needs to be like incorporated in when you're talking to a child, because I think snitching gets you in trouble. So I think maybe the term of maybe something like the terms need to change, as far as maybe standing up or speaking out, so kids can maybe get away from the word snitching. So it's not such a tough thing for a child to do when it's time to speak up. So maybe if the terms are changed, maybe if faculty can have meetings when they have faculty meetings, or if there's some type, I know it's COVID, but they have like maybe after school program or something in their lunch that they could go to. Or I know at Lakewood High School we had school base, and even though I didn't go to space or utilize the social workers, I did have a mentor, Kameria. He really opened up his office way past his hours, and just to make it a safe space. So I think the word snitching needs to be like diminished, I should say, and maybe come up with maybe speaking out, so it's more comfortable for students to feel comfortable to speak out and say something when something happens to them or a friend, or if they walking in a hallway they see it. So I think the word snitching needs to be taken out of the vocabulary of, reporting something that they see, so a child don't feel intimidated or don't feel like they're really being a snitch, because I feel like snitching comes, is like a street term to me. And I don't think that needs to be, and if you hear it, no, it's just speaking out. It's just, whatever you're feeling, let's make it comfortable for you to come to me, and let's voice how you feel. Maybe, switching up our words on how we utilize it. I think that's a good step too. And even maybe, in the beginning of our school years, when we start school and when we do it more in person now, the teachers need to be more sensitive, and I think need to have an introduction of maybe some things that they may experience throughout the school year, and have started right in the beginning. So, the school year goes through, they have their homeroom teacher, or they have a teacher that they can identify that, oh, I remember my teacher, Miss Haskins, and she told me in the beginning that this will happen to me, but I can identify who to go to, so I don't, question, or I don't wonder. So I think that we're snitching. It kind of bothered me as we were talking. I think it's more of the street term of telling on someone, or however people, talk about it. But, utilizing our words in a different way for kids to voice how they're feeling, or being comfortable to come to an adult, no matter if they're Black or white. So, yeah.
And
So,
also, sorry, go back to what Alina was saying, that some people feel comfortable speaking with more people that look like them, because I know a few experiences that I've had before is all of my guidance counselors have been white, and they're so quick to assume, oh, has this person, called you a derogatory word or something like that, and they won't really like understand how like scary that is for us to be able to come back and speak to someone about that, because of the way that we're told that, well, not told, but it's just learned that our voices don't matter as much as people that aren't the minority. So I just feel like people that look like us more, and that are like us, will really we can relate to more, and then we'll feel more comfortable speaking with them about things that go on in school.
I would add to what Jayla is saying. I think it's something like, actually, this is like a thought that just came to my head. And I'm like, I think it's something that we could, like, what if you don't have that professor, or that teacher, or that guidance counselor? And I think it's about like learning that, let's say I'm part of a minority. Everyone here pretty much identifies themselves as someone who, struggles with bias. And I think if we open our minds that I may not understand you specifically, but I understand what it's like, you broaden your spectrum a lot larger, and you have way bigger of a support group, and you don't have to only be like relying on that, the 5% or the small amount of people that are around you. And I think like that's something that like also in a classroom, what Ms. Hankins was discussing, like if a teacher would discuss it, and it would be like an open communication, like you're going to discuss, I may be white, but I'm talking about Black people, and I'm discussing it in a positive, respected manner, then that just makes even just the classroom feel like a safe place. Like it doesn't have to be only that one teacher and only that one group. Like it's kind of broadening the, I don't know, I feel like we can make the group a little larger.
thank you, Shbad. Anybody else? I think that was a great question. And I think that we're always looking for the common thread. It seems to be is that there needs to be more representative faculty, I guess, and people that you can talk to. And I guess my question, and this is the question I had when I went to some of the schools, is, Nicole, is a SAC a person that you can go talk to, a student's assistant coordinator or counselor? Is that the person? When I was in school, it was the guidance counselor. We didn't have SACs back then, but is a SAC a person? I know your question came from a genuine sense of wanting to know what we can do to make somebody feel more accepted. But, in your school, who's the person they would go to, I guess, is the question for me.
In the high school, if something needs to be reported, or they want to talk about something and voice concerns, students can go to the guidance center, or they can come to the child study center, and there we have a school psychologist, myself, as well as a social worker. So there's 2 spots, and our administration always has an open door policy as well.
Well, we've come a long way. I used to go talk to the gym teacher, so we've come a long way in our systems. But hey, Keith, you're at Rutgers, so I just wanted to hear a little bit from you. Like, how do you feel there? Is it more accepting, more open? Because my daughter wants to go to college soon, so I'm trying to get some inside info on Rutgers.
Yeah, so I go to Rutgers Camden, which is a smaller campus, but it's very diverse and very open. Like in high school, I didn't really feel comfortable like being out, and like I was very in the closet. I didn't want to, just it didn't feel right for me to come out. And also, like, I guess like in high school, like I didn't have anyone to talk to. Like I didn't have anyone who looked like me. Well, I did. I had one other kid, but he didn't like me. But that's besides the point. Like I didn't have anyone to talk to, but at Rutgers, like I have people that I can talk to. And one of the professors that I took a class with was openly gay. So that was nice to see. Like that like gave me the courage to talk more openly about these feelings that I was having and eventually come out. So I think Rutgers was a good choice for me in terms of being able to have the ability to discuss sexuality, gender, and all these other things openly without feeling weird or feeling like I was out of place.
I appreciate you sharing that, Keith, because I was curious about, because what we're hearing is there's such a difference from high school to college. And so we have representatives here from Monmouth University, Rutgers, who I miss, Ocean County College. So you just feel either safer or just more comfortable being around people that are like you, and it makes it easier for you. So I've been told by Paul, we have Mike Rush on the phone. Or Mike Rush is the former principal of South Toms River Elementary, and I guess he's been listening and he wanted to talk about. Mike Rush is also a friend of the office, and he's very involved with NAACP here in Ocean County, and I guess he wanted to weigh in on the educational curriculum components. That's what I've been told. But is Mike Rush on the phone, Paul, or can we hear him?
I guess if you unmute me.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, good. First of all, let me just thank you, prosecutor, and all of your people, and especially the young people there. I know Kameria well. I know Rojas well. They're part of the NAACP Youth and College Division of the Lakewood, Ocean County NAACP. Thanks for allowing me to say a couple of words. But what I wanted to talk about briefly is the Amistad curriculum. Amistad was the ship that was derailed by African slaves in the 1700s. And New Jersey has adopted the Amistad curriculum. That was adopted in 2002, which means African American history should be taught in every public school in New Jersey, beginning in 1972. It is my understanding that only 15% of the schools in New Jersey teach the Amistad curriculum. And things are beginning to change now. So, prosecutor, perhaps you and I know I've been talking to people, or the commissioner, the new commissioner, and Dr. Repollet, who's now at Kane University, about this. So that is one way that we can change things, by allowing the curriculum that was written and is out there to be taught in our schools. The other thing I'll say briefly is that the young people are correct, that young people need to see people who look like them. And so we need to do a conscious effort to recruit African American, Latinos, and other ethnicities to teach our students. So things that are what's happening in Lakewood should not be happening. And I agree with Kameria. I've been in Lakewood all my life. Well, not all my life. I'm from North Carolina, but I came to Lakewood in 1980 and been in Lakewood ever since. Okay. The other thing I just want to mention briefly is that I don't know how many people know this, but Miss Rosa Parks, I brought her to High School South, High School East, and Lakewood High School in February of 1985. But with that, I'll let you guys go. I don't know if you were in high school at that time, Commissioner. I'm sorry. But Miss Rosa Parks spoke at High School South. Okay, that's it for me. And young folk, thanks for doing what you're doing. If I can do anything to assist, please contact me. The prosecutor has my information, and this is really an excellent forum. So thank you.
Mr. Rush, thanks for being on. I'll get to you 1 second, Mike. I was in high school south of 1985, but I got to tell you, I don't remember Rosa Parks coming there. But if Mike Rush says it's true, then it's true.
It's true. There's a tape in high school East that you can see it. You may have been there, just don't remember.
It's possible. It seems like something I would remember, but I believe him. And Mike Rush is such a great leader here in Ocean County. I appreciate you being on the call. Mr. Caldwell, you had your hand up there, sir.
Thank you, prosecutor. It's always great to hear from Dr. Rush, and I'm on the Ocean County Human Relations Commission with him, and he contributes mightily every meeting that we're at with him when he's there. We were talking just prior to Dr. Rush. Shbad said something that really struck a note with me earlier when she said this. She said to her professor, "You know, we marry because of who we love." And, I heard, and I had some conversations. It was my pleasure to have these conversations over the past couple of days as we were preparing. And I had them with all of you. And again, it's my pleasure and look forward to our work together leading into the future. Particularly, Keith and Ray, when we were talking and Shbad said that kind of connected with me that it is who you love. And there is no one in this world who should be able to, or even try to tell you that you can't love somebody, no matter who it is, and no matter how you feel that love. And so, Shbad, thank you for saying that, because that really struck a chord with me. And when I talk to you, Ray, and I talk to you, Keith, that should always be respected. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thanks, Mike. So in the interest of being respectful of everyone's time, we've covered a lot of ground. We have some common themes. Are there any other issues that you think are important to bring up? Because I'm certainly inclined to stay, but to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we said 5 to 7 and we're after 7. Paul was very clear when we set this up on WebEx that we could go as long as we wanted. But I don't want to keep you all. I think this conversation has been important. I can tell you that the New Jersey Office of the Attorney General shared our flyer on their social media. So I'm hopeful that we have people from all over the state that were paying attention to this conversation. And I know that the people from the Office of the Attorney General, my colleagues, have been watching, and they've actually been texting me to tell me what a great discussion this is. And as thank you all for being a part of it, because you being a part of it is what made it a great discussion. We hear you, your voices should be heard, and we appreciate some of this isn't easy to talk about. But as I say to all my police chiefs here in Ocean County, is that we have to have the courage to have the difficult conversations. This is part of the job, and this is what we need to do to move the ball forward. Interpersonal relationships, connecting with one another. I think that everybody that was on here tonight brought their perspective to the discussion, and it was heard. And I appreciate all of you being a part of it, because it's not easy to discuss, and it's not easy to reveal things about yourself and to reveal your personal experiences. So I appreciate really all of you, and Mike and Paul for putting it together. I really appreciate it. I'm down to do this again. I'll just let everybody know. This is something that we could do again anytime that we feel it's necessary. All of you, as Dave D'Amico said, heroes, leaders, and role models. It's important for you to continue to do what you're doing wherever you are now, whether you're in college and wherever you are in high school. It's important to change the hearts and minds of our friends and our neighbors. And it's important for us to stand up to hate. That's the only way we're going to make a difference. So I really do appreciate you. This is not lip service. This is something that we've been doing here in Ocean County, and that we're trying to really just make a difference. And I can't tell you how thankful I am to hear from every one of you. So I thank you all individually, but I would extend this another half an hour if I went through one by one. But all of you to devote your time and to have this conversation means so much to me and to my staff. So to that, I bid you all farewell, and I thank you for being a part of this very important discussion. So thank you. All right, Dave. Thank you.
And with
Thanks,
that being
everyone.
said, everybody, before I end the meeting, we are broadcasting live to our viewers at YouTube and through our website at ocponj.gov/21-21. Just a reminder to find out any more programs about the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office and what we do here at our agency. Our website is ocponj.gov. And we encourage all of our viewers to follow us on social media. We have a strong presence on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at OCPONJ. With that being said, Michael, if you want to have a final word.
And you guys have our cell numbers. Don't be afraid to use them.
And with that being said, right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the broadcast to YouTube. So stand by.